So let's go ahead and jump into it, folks. Welcome to Chevalier's Books Online. We are the oldest independent bookstore in Los Angeles, established in 1940. But one of our latest claims to fame is that we are, in fact, Max Brallier's neighborhood bookstore. And it's been so thrilling to have him join our bookstore community. That's why we're here tonight to celebrate the first ever graphic novel in this enormously popular series, The Last Kids on Earth, Thrilling Tales from the Treehouse. Max Brallier is, of course, a best-selling author whose books and series include The Last Kids on Earth, Eerie Elementary, my personal favorite, Mr. Shivers, Galactic Hot Dogs, and Can You Survive the Zombie Apocalypse? Max is also one of the writers and producers for the Netflix Emmy Award-winning adaptation of The Last Kids on Earth. With him today to discuss this new book is none other than Douglas Holgate, the illustrator of the Last Kids on Earth series. Douglas is a comic book artist and illustrator based in Melbourne, Australia, where it is in fact noon, Friday, April 9th. Thank you so much for joining us from the other side of the planet, Douglas, today. We really, really appreciate it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the conversation between these two extraordinary creative minds, Douglas Holgate and Max Brallier. Thank you for joining us. Max, if you want to say a little bit about the book while we get started.
Sure. So the newest Last Kids book is Thrilling Tales from the Treehouse, and it's our first ever graphic novel. It has 6 little short comics, and one of them is the big sort of grand finale comic, which, as always, Douglas does the illustrations on that one. But this is the first time we're ever using other vastly superior illustrators besides Doug to do the work. We have 5 stories. There's a Jack story, a Quint story, a June story, a Dirk story, and then a Globlet story. Or the June story is like a June Scalpo story. So there's a sort of one like
and an Evie and Gast story.
And what's that?
And Evie and Gast. That's
my
story.
And then Evie Exact is sort of the big grand finale one that is Doug's. And that sort of will bridge. I don't know if Doug, if you started reading the manuscript, you have, right? Have you started reading the new one yet?
As in the one that you sent through yesterday.
Yes. Have you finished it yet?
Yes, I have started reading it.
It's done. So yeah, that bridges the gap between Skeleton Road and the upcoming book Doomsday Race. So there's like a sort of bridge story in there. Yeah. So it's fun. It's full color. It looks really fancy and full of all sorts of cool looking stuff. Doug's not actually seen the book yet, but I'm telling him it's true. All of Doug's illustrations are kind of blurry for some reason. I think it's a printing error, Doug, maybe.
It's all backwards.
No, it's all backwards. No, it looks really looks really amazing. It's very, I love on the back the little comic stuff.
Yeah.
It's very cute. It came out really well. It's very exciting. Soon they'll make it to your place, Doug.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Is that the first series of comics you've written, like actual?
No, I did. The only thing I did a book called. I did a graphic novel called Pop Tropic: A Mystery of the Map, which is like a that was the only like full on like graphic novel I'd done previously. It's different. It's like
it is.
I don't know if I was gonna say it's surprisingly different. I don't know if surprisingly different, but like it's very different. It's almost closer to writing. For me, it was like closer to writing scripts for the TV series than it was to writing a book. And it was just the visual way of doing it, and like there's no narrative text, whatever you want to call it, no prose maybe. But it was also hard. I found getting anything done over the past year really hard. Like any sort of work. Like,
I think we all did.
Like if at half time I was like, I should be getting everything done. No one's bugging me. But I found it really difficult. But it was good and different. You've done.
I think I've done a few.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of it's probably where I got my start. Like I was doing a lot of self-published comics way back, and I was working with on the first couple of Flight Crew, the flight anthologies back in the 2000s. And then a graphic novel with Scholastic Graphics, how long ago? About 3 or 4 years ago, I think, which I co-created, which was really good fun. But they are they are a grind. They are, because especially if you're doing, if you're working with your Marvel or your DC comics, generally you will have a team of people who are doing the writing, the drawing, the inking, the coloring, the lettering, the laying it all together. When you're kind of doing the whole thing, they are a big job, because you're writing it, then you've got to sketch it and thumbnail it, then you've got to draw it, then you've got to ink it, and you've almost got to do a whole book like 3 or 4 times before you get that finished thing. And because you've then got to go back to the start and do all of your lettering, and then all your typesetting and stuff. So they are, I think they're a lot more labor intensive than people think they are.
My least favorite part was just that every time I would try to change something, I'd end up throwing off the big page turns,
that's right, exactly. And that's exactly it.
You move a page, like doing the regular book doesn't matter really, but then it's like, oh wait, but I can't do that, because that means like when they turn the page, you're not going to see the big cool reveal, and I'll pad it and add some more things for Doug to draw, and then
I think it was Clem Hetherington that I did with Scholastic, where I was like, we'd gotten, we're about 80% through the book, and sort of the lead up to this final, like the big reveal and the big finale, and I'm like reading it, and I'm like, well, hang on, how about we add this dialogue here, and we could move this panel here, and if we add like a page here, then that'll really kind of it'll basically give it a better flow, it'll give it better beats, and a bit more impact. And my editor is like, that's great, Doug, but that means that we actually have to add 4 pages, because of the way that books work. You've got to if you add 1 page, you've got to add 4, because you've got 1 page, 2 pages the other side of that page, and then it goes all the way through the book, and there's another 2 pages. And I'm like, hang on, how does that work? So if you add 2 pages, you're adding 8 pages, and it's just, oh my goodness. So yeah, and it probably is similar for what we're doing with Last Kids as well. It's just a little, I think Jim, the art director, he can just move text around probably a little bit easier than redrawing entire pages of comic book panels.
We do there's other ways to fix those things, and like with you can cut a few lines of text in a regular. It's not just like shooting everything. It was fun. I'm excited to do more things like that, for sure.
And did you was it similar to the way that we do our regular books, in that you write the script and you're talking to Dana, and then the script is done, and I talk to Jim, the art director, and we sort of back and forth a bit. So you're more back and forthing with the editor, I'm more back and forthing with the art director. Was that the same process for you? Weren't talking to the other artists?
No, I didn't communicate at all with the other artists. It was the same thing. Only in the beginning, it didn't no communicating really, but when we had to sit down and choose other art, or think about the artists we would want to work with, I went, because the artists, they're really, really wonderful, and they all have very different styles.
Oh, they're amazing.
What I think part of what makes it really fun and work is that none of them are like, it's not like it just looks like Doug, but not quite. They look like so different.
Yeah, no, it's great.
So vastly, just like, it's so different. Anusha does picture books usually. This is the first thing she's done that wasn't, I believe. And so it was really fun to sit down, and this is maybe 18 months ago now. We sat down with a huge pile of portfolios, went through them, and that was like, oh, this is amazing. I got all these people who are so good. And just like imagine like what's this is like very kind of neon and bright. This might be good for the June story, and this is more sort of more traditional. Maybe this might be good for Jax, and it was just really so fun to be able to do that, and then figure out like what sort of this like is it more of an action thing this person's going to really be awesome at, or is it going to be more of a sort of like more the jokey thing, like the story that is a Quint's sort of story in the book is written as if it's Quint himself like writing and drawing his own comic, which is like I think a hard thing. Jay Cooper's illustrator of that one, and I think it's hard to get that sort of like where it sort of looks like actually a kid did do it, but at the same time it's like has enough sort of polish, whatever you want to call it, that it also is like really just fun to read. It's like when trying to make like when they show like a fake movie in a movie or something, making it seem like right.
Yes,
that was really fun trying to find that too, and that ended up being one of my favorite stories in the whole thing. But yeah, the process was the same. It was just I thought it was going to be like, this is cool, like this is in between books 7 and 8, like a smaller little project, like a smaller thing. We can keep people excited, and then like inevitably it's like everything is like the hardest thing I've ever done, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was like, what I was getting at before with, I think that they are deceptively bigger and more work than people actually think they are. They're a lot of fun, but they are just big projects. And so when I'm working with Jim and he's like, we're doing this comic, and I'm like, cool, do you know how long that's going to take? Like that's this is not going to be, just a little sort of, holiday fun time project.
No, I thought it was going to be too. I was like, okay, so it's five sort of short comics, and they're not within really the canon of the world, except for the Evening Gazette story. So like, it doesn't really like, I don't need to like, I spend so much time like worrying and suffering over like, wait, if they had to do this in this book, then I can mess up my head. I have in my head 4 books down the line. Like, no, this can be goofy and weird, and they can go to outer space if they wanted to. But then still, it's like I'm still like, up at 3 a.m.
You need a how George Martin, who does Game of Thrones, he's got his own personal historians who know the world of Game of Thrones better than he does, and he basically he gets in touch with them and goes, hey, so this knight and this family, are they like fighting? It's like, oh well, they did back 300 years ago. And it's going to become like that with Last Kids. We have to have like post-it notes on the wall telling you with pieces of string leading
I've got that. I need I realized when I was doing this, the one that you just received in your inbox, that like halfway through that book I was like, oh, I forgot about big stuff. And I was like, I need to create like a real Bible, like it's a TV show or something. So be like, oh right, that's why so and so really hates this other person, and that's why the powers don't work when you do this and you do this. Because I was like, there was like big things. I was like, oh, that's really important. I can't just forget about that.
No, it's one of my big fears of doing things like this, where you're public speaking and someone's going to ask a question about something from book 1, and I'm going to be like, I have no memory of that. So there was a kid not last year, year before at New York Comic-Con, who asked about book 1, Jack. Like we meet Rover, but just before he meets Rover, there's that he finds a picture of a family portrait in someone's house with a little dog, and this kid is like, is the dog in that picture actually Rover, and he's been mutated by whatever's going on? And I'm like, I've got no idea what you're talking about. What picture of what kid with him?
Like, who's Jack? What is this Jack character?
Who's Jack? What? Hang on, Quint. Oh yeah, no, the big guy with the no, hang on, he's not the one with the baseball bat.
No, I had that. Like, I have my own. I also gave, like, someone was here and at my house, and I was like, oh, you can have a copy of Last Kids, and it was the copy that I didn't realize. It was like the one that I had like all my like my sort of highlighted stuff not to remember. And I had to like call them. I was like, I know I gave this to you for your daughter, but can I please have it back? It's the one that keeps me alive. And then I finally just bought ebook copies of all of them, so I can like now just like search through them usually because I would like
Yeah.
look for stuff in the I would look I was like I was trying to like dig up the old PDFs of like book 3 and like I never have it where I want it and like I open up and it's like not the final version and like I'll try to like search something in the PDF, be like, okay, what did Skelka say the first time we met her? And then like the PDF like it inevitably crashes because it's always crashing, and I'm like, I'm losing it. Yeah, I need like that. So we maybe we can get someone we can share who's like
And especially with the
maybe actually
especially with the Netflix series, like I've not seen the latest series yet, but
it's really fun.
It's relatively similar, but is there things that there are some things happening in there that don't necessarily happen in the books?
Yeah, there's stuff in there that's there's nothing like there's no major like
No major things, but there's like little
Yeah,
bits and pieces
for
of sort of
sure. And
scenes
like
that, yeah.
Bloblet from the show
Yes.
became a character in the book because she was so fun.
Yeah.
And then there's another one of those I feel like Chef from the show became a character in the book.
Yes.
Not as major. Like the Bloblet one was like she's like on the cover.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
Very quickly becoming one of my favorite characters.
My friend Haley, who writes for the show, did the voice for her in the and on the show, and like we just started doing it in the writers' room, and it was so funny. I was like, oh, she's great. I have a really big gag. I have an exciting gag for her. I think in the next book.
Very cool.
So yeah, they said also sort of bleeds over, and then like sometimes I like sort of like steal stuff for the book that we kind of did. There's like some like dream world type stuff that I'm playing with that like we did in the show, we didn't do in the book. So yeah, it kind of like bleeds over a little bit, but in a good way so far.
I've noticed that with probably Skeleton Road more than June, because I think they're the two books that have come out since the show's really landed. That I haven't changed what I do visually, but there's stuff in the show where I'm like, oh man, that's a really good idea. Like that's a really great design. I should have come up with that. And then I'll sort of, add a little bit of, something to the treehouse or, something with Big Mama, just like the way that it was done in the show versus the way that it looks in the book. I'm like, man, that's a really cool. I wonder if I just sort of, just influenced by.
Yeah, you can't help but like the voice of I feel like the sort of the voice of Bartle, the way he talks changed a bit after we started working on the show. That was like right in the beginning.
Yep.
But like he got like a little bit funnier, a little bit goofier. Yeah, it's weird how it works.
And it's probably one of the good things about the graphic novel with all of the different artists is from my, like Jim sent me through so I have seen all of the chapters. I just haven't seen the physical book, but just going through and seeing the way that all of these other artists have actually interpreted characters that, we've created and I've designed, and monsters that I've, sort of like the way that someone draws Jack versus the way that I draw Jack. I just find it really, really interesting. I'm like, oh man, you did that. That's a great idea.
you get angry. You're like, that's not Jack. That's not my Jack.
That's not, well, yeah, it was funny when like the first time I saw the comic, not the comic, the Netflix series, it was that weird thing of like, because it is effectively, it is like someone has animated my work, but someone else has drawn it.
Right.
So it's in the style of how I draw, but it's not quite how I draw. And so there would be something in the show where I'm like, well, that's not how that's meant to look. Like, ugh. But it's grown on me. And I just like the way, I think it's mostly the eyes, like, because I draw eyes the way I draw eyes and they're different on the show. It can make a character appear quite different. But then there's scenes, especially in that first series and the pilot, where it sort of feels like it's basically just a scene I've drawn in the book and they've animated it, and I'm like, man, that's amazing. It's very, very cool. So it's always great to see and it's probably the first time it's really happened to me, is seeing other artists, not just hundreds in an animation studio interpreting the look of characters that you've designed, but other artists in the graphic novel interpreting what you've drawn, and even fan art. You know, when kids rock up to a show and they've got fan art, or they're putting fan art on Instagram or whatever, and it's always interesting to me that I see these characters the way I see them, but someone else has interpreted it completely differently. And it still looks cool, but it's just really interesting to me that it can be interpreted, but still the same.
I've seen it. Like, I think it was at Comic-Con, that kid brought up a drawing he did, and you were really very critical. You really just.
I
really
was very brutal, and like, don't ever darken my door again.
I'm glad you're a fan.
Might have, like, backslapped him. Don't ever do that again. That didn't happen. It didn't happen.
I'll see them on like Twitter, Instagram, and like sometimes it's like the cute, like just so cool, like somebody drawing something for their birthday, or but then there's a lot of like they're always like making out. I'm always just it weirds me out. I get so uncomfortable. It freaks me out. I don't know. Weird. On that note. I keep thinking that I keep waiting to. I feel like you're gonna like some sort of beast is gonna like come out of the brush behind you.
Not from behind me. We do have a lot of kangaroos here. A couple of echidnas. There was a fox overnight somewhere up the hill. It was about 5 acres, and so there's a lot of kangaroos that the dog enjoys chasing.
I think that the first thing I either asked you, or I think I was gonna ask Dana or Jim. And I was like, I don't want to be like that American is like, do you have kangaroos in your backyard?
Do you have kangaroos? And now I actually do.
Well, do the kangaroos there?
It's always the first question. So I like, we only just moved here about a month ago, full-time about a week ago. And we were living in town. We were living in the city, in Melbourne. So there are not kangaroos there. And so when everyone would go, do you have kangaroos? And they're like, no, we don't. But now I do.
You dingoes?
No, they're more desert. Like they're out sort of west, in sort of central Australia. We do have, there's one koala apparently around here somewhere, in the whole area. Had some wedge-tailed eagles flying over. It's pretty cool. But yeah, like I could have an Australian, I think the Australian version of Bigfoot is a yowie, I think. So you never know.
Yowie.
I like to keep my windows open at night just in case I can hear something.
I'd freak out. I think I'd be terrified though.
When I was up in the Pacific Northwest a few years ago and staying with some friends, and they were like right in Bigfoot country and trying to freak me out with all of these sort of X-Files-y stories of seeing like floating lights and hearing things in the forest, like trees cracking. And when they went there the next morning, like, here's a tree just split in half and there's no way that could possibly happen. And I'm like, oh man, this has got to happen to me. So I like had the window open all night, just hoping that something would come through the window.
I'm still getting used to all the spiders in California, and it's weird. And it's like, it's scary. Like a sealed box of some sort. like filtered air. Yeah. Is that where you're gonna be working from now on, out there? Can you do your work outside?
Just out in the bush. Yeah. No, I'm gonna have a garage downstairs, which, like I said before, is still it's got a lot of boxes in it at the moment, and it's pretty filthy. So we need to clean out the boxes, put some new walls in, and make it so that I can work in there without feel like I'm working in a terrible basement. So
I think we're
I'm currently
we're on a tight deadline for the new one. So
I know, that's why I'm currently so chaining me in the basement. I prefer, I'm just going to work in the living room amongst my family, so they can put up with me for a month.
So book 8 is currently with Doug, and the next one is outline. I'm almost outlining the next one. So Fast and Furious.
And the title of the next one is The Doomsday Race, which is a very, very cool title.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
That one took a while to get there. Yeah, it's good though. It sounds cool.
Yeah.
Because it's a play on words too. I won't spoil
It
it.
is.
It's
No.
it's a pun. It's very good. Very clever.
All right, so I'm going to jump in here, you guys. I did want to mention, if you didn't see my notes in the chat box, that if you wanted to ask questions to either Doug or Max, you're welcome to just drop a question into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. I see we've got a couple already, so we'll make sure to get to those. I also have a few of my own questions. The first being, obviously, you're not sitting in a room together working on this for several reasons. So what is it like working so intimately on a project, on a series, but like literally not being able to turn around and just like make a note and working from so far away from each other?
I think that we are lucky for Doug. We don't have to. We it's really, most of it, I feel like it goes through the sort of the editorial layer, and then the editor is a woman named Dana, and then through the art director Jim, and then so manuscript, Dana, Jim, Doug. And so it's not like I've done other stuff in the past where it's very like back and forth, artist, illustrator, da, 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 da. Here, yeah, luckily for Doug, he doesn't have to hear or see much from me. It really, it's all sort of, it's filtered through many different levels of publishing bureaucracy.
I think it was the June book. I think you actually rang me.
Yes.
And I almost threw my phone across the room, like, what the?
It's Max.
You rang me and you were like, hey, Doug, do you mind if this book is double the length that we said it was going to be initially?
And it was.
And it was.
You said,
I don't know that that's up to me, Max, but okay.
Yeah, you said, why we paid double? And I said, I don't know. And you said, okay. Yeah, but it really does go, there's a whole bunch of, we do about 150, maybe now maybe 160 illustrations per book. And I'll sort of describe them all, write them all up, like what I sort of see in my head, but like pretty basic stuff. And then that'll all go over to Doug, and Doug will sketch it all out. And then it looks like amazing. And really, like, that's kind of the process. There's not a ton of, only with like maybe certain big new characters or something, some like major new creature, or like a big setting, like it's going to be like a long-term setting type thing. Is it like, is there much like really, then I'll send like a bunch of references over, like it's just maybe it looks like this, it looks like this, it looks like this. But yeah, that's sort of the process.
On that note, I'm curious about Doug. Has there ever been a moment, either when you found out the June book was going to be twice as long, or when Max sent notes along to extend panels, where you wished you were in the same room with him just so you could like grab him by the collar and just shake him out of anger? Any moments like that?
No, because
more skeletons on the scene, Doug.
Oh my goodness, Skeleton Road. Hey, Doug, just draw 1,000 skeletons, creating one giant skeleton with another skeleton on top. Sure, Max.
That one. Not so bad.
No, because it would probably be like that. I imagine I would be halfway through drawing something and Max would be like, actually, no, man, I've changed my mind. So it's now going to be not that anymore. No, I think that what's interesting is I think that in the last, especially in sort of probably, the last 3 or 4 books in particular, we've kind of got a bit of an unspoken language back and forth, purely just because I know, generally now when Max says, this is his suggestion, I kind of know, having done it in the past and it's been changed, and then it's sort of ended up looking like that at the final thing, that's what the not the expectation, but that's kind of what he's got in mind. So and also working with Jim, the art director, you kind of just sort of know what each of us is looking for, and what, I know basically Max just wants 1,000 skeletons on every page. And so that's what I'll
form
have
one
to give him.
different skeleton when they put them all together.
Yes. So I think the process has become a lot more streamlined, which is really good, because while there will be edits, and there will be, I'll draw something, especially if it is something new or it's something very specific that Max has got in mind. It'll take a little bit of back and forthing to get that right. But in general, I think we're now, I think there's a little bit of experience and trust in, I know what he's sort of thinking. Hopefully he knows what I can and can't do, or what I do and don't like doing. So it's
The new cover,
yeah,
I think the newest cover had the least amount of notes.
yes, yeah, which was really interesting. Yeah. Other than Globlet not being on the cover, which was really disappointing to me, because I really loved that drawing that I did of her. You're like, wow, you're so cool. Yeah, no, I agree. It was probably the least amount of sort of back and forthing on the cover, purely because the cover, the cover's the first thing you see, and that sort of sets the tone for the book. And yeah, and I think, a really good example is that, because we're up to, what is it, book 7? What book is the next one?
Next one is like the book 7 in the main series, but June is but the June book is not a numbered book, but the June book is very much like a real.
So number 7 in the main series, and it's that thing of, there's a sort of a general layout for the cover, where we know that the title's going to be there, and there's going to be credits there, and there's going to be, a Netflix badge there. So I sort of now have more sense of what room I've got to work with. Also, things like what Max likes on a cover, what the publisher likes on a cover. And so I can kind of take that away and go, well, working within those guidelines, here is what I can come up with. And I probably nailed it for the first time, which is why there aren't that many edits for this cover.
Out of the park. First one. Now we have to add the color to it, which is awesome. It stresses me out.
That's awesome. So I was curious a little bit about when the two of you first started working together, because middle reader books are so special in that I think their illustrations are also so core to the stories and the way that kids identify with the books and remember them as they grow up. And so how was this Match Made in Heaven first started, and was it a very difficult process to find the ideal illustrator for the story, Max?
No, it was, it was, I think, like really the best sort of stars aligning type of luck thing. I recall, man, it's been a long time now. It's weird.
It has been a long time.
It's been a long time. Like, it's been longer than it sort of feels like it's been. But it's been at least 7 years of this, I think, or 6 years. Going back to like the beginning of the first book, like happening.
Yeah.
It was like that's like 4 houses ago or 4 apartments ago. No kid, not married. Very different.
It was called. The title of the book was completely different too.
Oh yeah, it's called The Treehouse at the End of the World.
Treehouse at the End of the World. Yeah.
But we changed it because of the 13-story treehouse. That was from
right. Yeah.
We had heard about the 30-story treehouse. So if I recall, Jim had sent over with one illustrator. Maybe he didn't know anybody else. He was like, hey, I got one illustrator. Here's Doug. What do you think? No, but he sent over.
One guy.
I remember being like, holy, this is amazing. His art is really amazing. And
thanks, man.
like yes, let's do that. And then being even like more happily surprised, because like I don't remember in your portfolio, I can't remember. I don't remember every part of your portfolio, Doug. I'm sorry, but it was like just such cool monsters, and like there's like some there's a big cool sword moment, I believe, or something like that. And it was just like a lot of like very cool images with like really like sort of like characters you sort of wanted to like hug or high five right as soon as you saw them. But as the books have gone on, I think I don't know. I don't want to speak for the way that you draw funny stuff is has become like a really or even in the first book. Like I think I didn't expect. It was such a happy surprise to see like how funny and how like sort of like the spring loaded like Hobbs like bursting into Calvin throwing him out a doorway. Those sort of like eggs and those sort of moments like how wonderful those are in the books. That's ended up being sort of my favorite thing. Like the monsters are really cool. I love them. And that's why I was like, yeah, that looks great. But then it was like, oh, we can do all the monsters and these jokes are really funny. And that was like, so I just think it's just really, I think that it's just pure luck. Like pure great luck. That's what I got.
And Doug, what was it like for you to, I guess, I'm not sure exactly how it looked like, but when the manuscript dropped into your inbox or something, and did you expect that one project to end up, spiraling into the 7-8 year journey that's still going?
No, absolutely not. This is the only, like I've worked on a lot of books over, however long I've been doing this. I can't remember now, about 17 or 18 years. I've worked on a lot of books. And I think, as Max saying, it's just kind of a really fortuitous confluence of events that it's sort of really resonated with people and taken off. And I don't even think that when I draw a book, I even think about that. Like I'm not sort of going, I'm contracted to do, sometimes it's just a one-off, sometimes it'll be a one-off, but maybe it'll be more, depending on whether it sells or not. But in general, it's sort of, there's going to be at least 2 books. So you kind of think about it as a shortish series, but at no point am I going, this is going to be the next New York Times bestseller and Netflix series and toy range and computer game and what have you. So it's been pretty wild and profound. But that said, I think when I first read it, I'm like, this is like you can tell when a book is going to be really fun to draw, I suppose, because as Max said, it's got these sort of very human, funny, silly moments and very cartoony moments, but also then there's these, just giant monsters and big sort of apocalyptic cataclysms and, really kind of serious stuff like Jack being an orphan and not having a family. And a little, and what that's probably one of the great things about the series as a whole so far is that it sort of started off as this kind of fairly silly, fun, cartoony thing. But as we've gone, it's started to get a little darker and it's maintained its comedy tone, but also we're sort of, exploring sort of bigger sort of darker ideas, like bigger fantasy ideas and like this impending kind of thing coming to claim the world, and Jack is the one who's there to defeat it. And he struggled in, was it Cosmic Beyond, he was struggling with losing his family, with the kids, like his friends had become his family unit, and so he's sort of dealing with jealousy and not wanting that to be broken up. And he also wants, obviously them to find their parents if they're still alive, but at the same time is like, I don't want to lose what we have. So, there's some really, I think it's a really beautiful balance of comedy, serious tones, serious sort of undercurrents through it, but also, giant monsters and zombies and what have you. And giant mollusk creatures with supermarkets on their, like not supermarkets, giant shopping malls on their back.
If it was just a little supermarket, it would be much more.
A little supermarket would be a novel idea, Max.
Nope, every book be something bigger. Wait till that thing comes through the portal at the
That'll
end.
be the Mall of America, man.
Yeah. I think the description in the text is it's like the Mall of America, but bigger.
Bigger.
Yeah. Now draw that, Doug. Oh.
And then Max,
yeah,
when you
sorry.
oh, I'm so sorry, Doug.
No,
Go on.
I was basically just going to repeat what I said already.
I was just gonna ask Max if when you put out the first book or when you started, did you have the idea of like this is the whole arc, or this is sort of the end point of the story that I need to get to? Did you expect it to be this long a series, or how has that whole sort of planning process been?
I had somewhere around I think book 4, I felt like I needed to either kind of like they could either continue to sort of hang around this town and sort of have adventures and like sort of Scooby-Doo battle different monsters of the monster of the book, or and this is sort of going into book 5. This is when I had this moment. So I think it's book 3 ends with them on this roller coaster, and it's sort of stuck up there and it's raining, and they find out that their parents there's a sort of radio call from their parents, and then it's like, guys, I think we gotta go find our parents. And then the next book, I had like a panic attack at the end of that book, and I was like, wait, then what's supposed to? Then I'm not ready for them to leave the town. So the next book opens with like, snowstorm, we're trapped in Wakefield. And it reminds me of it's like the scene at the beginning of I think I forget early on in the Bone series when like there's like all the snow falls.
Yes. Yeah.
That's like what happened. It just cracks me up. And
that was one of my favorite books to draw as well, because I could just cover everything in snow. I mean,
maybe
hey Doug, let's draw this giant fight scene, and I just have to like cool, but it's just all covered in snow. So artfully placed
white paper. Big
That's
snow.
right.
So I needed between 3 and 4 when I was like I need a year. I need time to figure out what's going to happen here before I sort of get myself into a corner. Because I was scared that having the kids leave Wakefield and leave the treehouse would like you would sort of lose the DNA or like the feeling of the series, and which I didn't want. It's like it'd be like doing like Star Wars with like no Millennium Falcon at all. Like part of like what you'd familiar being there and like and being on board that ship is what makes it feel like that's what you think that you love. But then I was like, okay, we need to figure out what's going to happen. So around sort of book 4, I started to really think about it, and then in doing 5, I was like, okay, I need to know if they're going to go on the road and like they're going to leave this town behind, it's going to really change everything, and like we're going to lose a lot of like it's not just like having fun in the suburbs or like having fun in a little town anymore. It's not like just like a treehouse thing anymore. It's like now it's like the 2 towers, and like it's like a very different vibe. But so I had to sort of like, we're gonna do that, gotta like kind of like go all the way in and do that. Can't sort of like half do it. So that was a big decision, but like, that's what we did. And now they're like on a big epic road trip, and they'll probably come back like when the series is like reaching its end. So it was around book 4 or 5 I started to really say, okay, this is how many books I think there should be. This is how it's going to come. This is sort of what the big grand finale thing might be. This is what I want to happen to the characters. How I want them to wrap up. So I have a loose plan to sort of march towards, because I don't want it to be a thing that someone enjoys for 10 years. I mean, it's come on once a year. It's like 10 years of your life, and there's nothing worse than like getting to the end of something and like, that was it. Like that's the worst. Like, we'll probably all have that with like certain series or TV shows or whatever. And I don't want that to be like Last Kids. So that's why I never ever sleep, because I'm always worried about that. Yeah.
Oh, we're getting some questions from it's like big fans of the book. And since we're talking about book 4, they're asking, why were the monsters scared of the harmless snow in book 4? Do you remember?
Oh, it's because they didn't have snow in their dimension, so they were like, "What is this?" Like, there's a line I remember. I was cracking me up. They're like icy something. do they call it? They call it something funny.
We freak out when we get snow here
Flakes
too.
of cold death falling from above. Yeah, flakes of cold death. So they're freaked out, but there's no snow in their dimension, so it's very just new and bizarre to them.
Got it. All right, so I do want to get to these questions that we've got waiting for us in this Q&A box. The first one, I'm very curious about this one as well, is from Aiden, who's asking, who is the most fun to draw?
Ah, that is a good question.
I'll take this one.
So you want to take this one?
Yes,
I will actually say Skalka, because she's constantly really over the top, and she's constantly looking to chop something. A lot of the time, like she's kind of a really classic sort of barbarian fantasy character. She's got this crazy face. She's constantly furious. I think there was like a little extra cartoon, like a little comic strip in the back of one of like book 4 or something that we did, and it was her fighting a giant moth. Oh no, the comic. No, they created the comic, and she was in the comic, and she chopped the comic. And I'm like, this character she's nuts, and I love her. And I think it's just really fun to draw. A little bit like Globlet. Like it's why I really like Globlet, is because also she's a bit elastic. So Globlet's quite elastic, so you can do really kind of over the top, cartoony sort of stuff with her, similar to Skalka. Where you can just have her in crazy poses with these huge axes, and she's constantly screaming and yelling, and permanently, basically constantly looking to cut stuff up with her axe. So I think Skalka is probably my favorite to draw for sure.
You're really gonna like the next book,
like as in the current book or the next book?
The current book.
Right.
The one that I'm outlining right now, you're going to enjoy.
Right. Yeah. Because we left Skalka. She's gone off with Rover to go somewhere and do something.
Go help light one of the torches or whatever.
Yes.
Help
the
guys rise in other parts of this world.
Yes.
You should do that.
We're getting some questions which I love because they remind me, there's a series, I forget what it's called, but it's a series where they pit authors versus super fans of the series they write, and they ask them questions and they find out who actually knows the story or the lore better, whether the super fan or the author, like we were mentioning with George R. Martin. And so we've got a
what
couple
was I
questions
saying
like
earlier about this being my worst nightmare?
Well, the first one is easy, and it's just asking, why did you decide to make Rover gray?
That's a very good question. Wolf color, I suppose. Wolfy sort of. I think the first time I colored Rover was on the cover of
Nightmare King.
Was it Nightmare King? Yeah, Nightmare King. Yeah. And I think I was just thinking of wolves, and because he's a sort of a large dog character. I think that was probably it, really. At the end of the day, it was just kind of a gray dog color. Wolf.
In the I don't think he's
in the show. He's purple. In the Netflix series, he's purple.
And like in the text, I don't think he's ever described. I don't think he's sort of. I don't think his color is sort of given. So it was. No. Yeah. I was at a school. I remember at a school visit when the third book came out, and someone was like, "Why are they writing some like kid who's misbehaved at the end of like a 2-week tour?" I was like, "Why are they riding a big hamster?" I was like, "It's not a hamster. It's not a hamster, all right?" It's a very cool dog. It's a very cool dog. And you wish you had one. So yeah.
Okay, so this one looks like it's for Max. And this fan is asking, how did Thrall rise rotten skeletons into skeleton soldiers from the dead. I thought that was impossible.
Ah,
Wait, sorry, say repeat it again.
How did Thrall rise rotten skeletons into skeleton soldiers from the dead? I thought that was impossible.
It is impossible within the realms of this sad, weak little world we live in. But with his interdimensional, awesome cosmic powers, yeah, he has the ability now to control the dead, not the undead like the zombies, but like he can rise, bring sort of. I wanted to do like a Ray Harryhausen sort of like old skeleton army thing, like or something like Army of Darkness or something like that. So I was like, oh, he's doing skeletons, that'd be cool. Like skeletons fighting zombies is really fun, and that's like something like really fun for Doug to draw thousands and thousands of skeletons and zombies clashing. So yeah, so Thrall now has the power to control skeletons. But I was like losing my mind trying to keep track of who has what and who got what power from where. So now it's all sort of I got it ironed out now.
but he's also using his vines.
Yeah, vines are sort of
skeletons as well. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
connected to the tree thing. Boy.
So we've got a couple questions from a Baron. The first one's a little easier, and they're asking, in the Skeleton Road, why did Skulka use pepperoni rolls to replenish her thirst?
I think, oh, right. Yeah, she's like, I need to quickly, I must replenish my thirst.
Because she's crazy.
Because she's just, yeah, because she's
just crazy, and she does whatever she wants.
Yeah, barbarian.
And I'm going to eat the saltiest thing I can find to quench my thirst is a perfectly normal thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She's a big meat eater. She's a
big meat eater. Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, this one is, I think this one's a little bit above my personal pay grade. I'll try to read it slowly. So this is also from Baron, who's asking, when Jack sliced the Wretch, who later became King Wretch, how did Rezach slip inside? I thought Rezach was still trapped in another dimension. I mean, Jack, Quinn, June, Dirk, and their monster friends stopped Thrall's plan. This is half book 2, half book 3.
This is a Doug question, I
think. So when Jack came across the skull, oh no, I'm thinking of Blarg.
Wrong monster.
Hang on. I was thinking of Blarg because he came across the skull of Blarg near the motel. Yes. And he touched the vines with his cosmic hand and he could see into, other dimensions. So I don't think Rezach was there. I think he was having a vision because he was having visions from the Nightmare King as well. So he would, that was the Nightmare King's power, right? Was that he basically gave you crazy visions.
Like, I mean, that is right.
No. And like Jack was going into crazy dream worlds when the Nightmare King
right. So the Nightmare King. No, that's right. Yeah, in Skeleton Road, he grabs Skeleton Road. He finds bone, but Blarg, but in bone, like a skeleton form.
Yes, like the skeleton of Blarg.
Yeah. Blargus, because of bone and carcass, or the Blarg and carcass, and very clever.
That's why they pay you the big bucks.
Yeah, that one. So in Nightmare King, we see, so the Nightmare King, the King Wretch is used as sort of his chest opens up and is sort of a portal through which Rezach is able to speak to Jack. And I think Baron's question is partly related to the show. That's why I think half of it is there's some show stuff and some book stuff, or some of the book stuff that's in the show. But yeah, because the King Wretch is like a sort of loyal servant of Rezach, the King Wretch is able to use sort of be a sort of a portal, like a gateway for Rezok to speak to the kids. Yeah, if I recall.
And that is that should answer your question.
Nice.
Just call Chevaliers every day and ask them again.
But yes, yeah.
All right, so we've got time for just a couple more questions before we say goodbye. We've got a question from Blair asking, would you do another graphic novel after this one?
No. Yeah.
Another Last Kids graphic novel.
I think for now, all we're doing only graphic novels. That's the plan.
That's it. It's only graphic novels from now on. Well, what's interesting about Last Kids, and one of the things I really like about the series, and I think one of the things that's quite well, maybe not unique, but one of the things that makes it sort of different from other middle grade readers is that there are a whole lot of real comic book elements in the series. Anyway, it's quite highly illustrated. It'll sort of cut from prose into an illustration with speech balloons. There are sort of little one-page panel progression comic book pages sort of peppered throughout each book. So there's sort of a very strong comic book aesthetic influencing the whole series. I mean, you know, I'd be happy to do another graphic novel at some point, but I'd probably maybe we'll take a year off graphic novels and come back in a couple of years.
Same answer. I think I would like to do. I love the Dirk, the Jack and Quint sort of like self-drawn thing. I'd love to do more like something like that. I don't know what it would be exactly, but like sort of like what the kids are making on their own time or something within this world. But yeah, I'll take a year off from those.
Right. So last question for you both before we release you, which is, do either of you have any tips or advice you would give to a young budding writer or a young budding illustrator?
I'll go.
You go. Yep.
Sure. Okay. So for all you illustrators out there,
here's my tip: let the writer speak first. That's my tip.
Okay, so I think the kind of obvious ones are you gotta like read a lot, read the stuff that you enjoy to read, and then write a bunch, but write short stuff. I have like a lot of times I'll be at a school visit or something, or a convention type thing, and a kid will come up and I'll be like, me and my best friend are writing a book, and it's going to be a 7-book series, and this is and we're on the first book, and this is the first page of like a 7-book series. It's going to be 1,000 pages. I'm like, you're never going to finish that. Who can finish that? Like, no one can finish that. Back to George R. R. Martin, not and no one's finishing that. So like I first got excited about writing when I did like some short stories, and I was like, oh, this is cool, like it's done, this is a whole thing, it's completed, I wrote it, and it has a beginning, middle, and end, and it's done, and I can like, and it's it. So I think like write very short things first to start would be my suggestion, and then like I always write really messy and really badly just to get to the end, to finish it and be like, hey, I finished something, it feels really good, and then you go back and make it better. There's no value in having like a really great, really having a really wonderful opening sentence or opening paragraph and nothing else. So yeah, write to get to the end, and then go back and make it sound nice, or don't, like I do, just let it live like that.
It's probably pretty similar advice for an artist as well. It's just keep drawing, keep painting. Don't be afraid to sort of immerse yourself in as much kind of visual stuff as you can. Don't be afraid to look at the way people do things in movies or cartoons. Go and try your hand at other forms of art as well. If you want to draw comics, or you want to draw novels or covers, you know, obviously go and look at, you know, there's a whole lot of other artists out there doing stuff at the moment, and find what you like. But also, you know, I studied art at university far too long ago to remember now, about 25 years ago. And I really loved comics when I was a kid, and I was drawing comics as a kid. But then I kind of came through high school and went to university. I'm like, man, I'm really over all of that stuff. I was doing painting, I was doing sculpture, photography. I almost became a photographer. I was really into filmmaking as well. All of that stuff informs what you do as an artist. So, you know, look at some of the stuff that your favorite artists are doing, and, you know, try and work out how they're doing it, and then make it your own. And similar to what Max was saying, if you're interested in drawing stories, comics, graphic novels, etc., start small. Because yeah, like very, like basically the same story. I've had a lot of kids and a lot of adults as well, probably more adults than kids, come up to me and go, oh, you know, this is my first comic, and it's going to be this grand fantasy epic, and it's going to be 8 graphic novels and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, mate, that's like a decade's worth of work, if not more. Finish a short story first before you bite off a huge sprawling fantasy epic. And you know, it's like, if you do a little short 10-page comic, and then you do another little short 10-page comic, and another little short 10-page comic, and then all of a sudden you've got, you know, 30, 40, 50 pages of comics all of a sudden. And it's quite a daunting process to sort of think of this huge thing and start at page 1 when you've got 1,000 pages to draw. So if you just bite things off in little chunks, you know, and then you sort of can push yourself further and further. But I think ultimately it's keep drawing and looking at, don't be afraid to look everywhere for inspiration.
Wonderful. Okay, so thank you, an enormous thank you to both, you know, Douglas Holgate and Max Brallier, who are with us today. Thank you for sharing your time and your energy and your stories. Before we say goodbye, I am once again going to plug that we've got signed copies of Thrilling Tales from the Treehouse still available at Chevalier's Books. You can click on the link, which I've dropped into the chat box, or you could just stop by and pay us a visit, and we'll make sure that you get your copy. So once more, thank you, Max and Doug. Before we officially end this meeting for everybody, do either of you have any last words to share with us?
As in, we keep watching the skies.
What is that? I got nothing.
I don't know. Thanks for reading the books. I hope you enjoy the new one.
Thanks everybody. Keep watching.
Yeah.
This.
Thank you everyone for coming. Keep watching the skies.
Yeah.
Brilliant advice. Take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening or your day wherever you are. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming.